The Five Rings Podcast with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramee on the Sports Podcasting Network. Follow us and listen to us live on Twitter at Five Rings Podcast and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network for more content.
Good day, good night, and welcome to the Five Rings Podcast. I'm Kevin Laramee, joined by Duane Rollins as always. And Duane, it is day 11. We're focused more, of course, on the athletics department right now, but looking, of course, overall, and we're excited for the show. Great events are coming, and we have some great medals in the book for everyone to do it first. How are you?
I'm well. Day 11 is I think officially when you turn the corner onto the final stretch, but which is sad, but also good in some levels because I need to sleep, and I think you need to sleep. And I love it. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to enjoy the last few days of this, but yeah, it's you forget how big a Summer Games is until you dive into it. And hats off to the people that are even at a higher level diving into it than us, because it's a lot of work. But we love it, and we'll keep doing it.
No, exactly. I can only imagine having to do maybe more than we do right now, and that would be a whole lot, like you mentioned. But I am excited about this show, about what's to come, and the things we're going to talk about, because amazing things are going to come for Canada. Of course, Thursday, 10 p.m., that's the final of the women's gold medal game between Canada and Sweden. That's on our schedule for this week, and we're looking forward for that. But now, before we dive into our medals, we have something else to get ready to, and it's going to be that final that will take place tomorrow at 8:55 a.m. in the morning. That's a 200-meter men's final, because let's be chauvinistic for a second, Duane. Let's be homers for a second. Two Canadians in the final. But not only two Canadians that did amazing time, personal best in the semifinal. We're talking about Andre deGrasse with a personal best of 1973 in the 200 meters, also a Canadian record, and Aaron Brown with a 19.99, a new personal best also for the Canadian sprinter. Aaron Brown famously chose to only focus on the 200, and he had a very good heat and a good semifinal too. Sub 20 is really good for him. It's a new personal best. The track is really fast, let's not forget, so we're seeing very quick times here. deGrasse famously did win a bronze medal in the 100-meter final and did a terrible kind of heat time of 20:53. Turns around and almost shaves a second off that time and does a personal best here. He had a 2-hour nap, Duane. He got up and he felt good, and he told himself, yeah, let's do this thing. Let's go to the track. Let's warm up.
Yeah, and I mean, credit to him for trying to do the double. It's becoming increasingly rare that athletes are trying to do multiple events. Like you see it, and it's always very highlighted when it does. But by and large, they become more and more specialist nowadays. And that's sort of a change from the past, where it always used to be, how the sprinters used to always try a treble. They often were in the long jump. It's been a long time since they did that, because they're not going to risk, that 100-meter money by jumping into sand, right? It's nice to see it happen, but I believe they said that it's only 3 people in the entire field are attempting to do the two. So that first heat, he was still kind of in recovery mode from the 100. And
oh yeah.
Look, he got through, and you have to manage heats a little bit. And I'll tell you what, the run he had tonight, I wasn't sure going in what it was going to look like, because I watched that, whenever it was. It's time concept. It's out there somewhere, this nebulous thing. I watched it at some point in the last little while, and I was like, I saw the same thing everyone else did. So when the deGrasse heat came up, the semifinal came up, Brown was already through at that point. I was like, well, we got Brown in, and if this goes sideways, then
Brown's there to save us.
Yeah, and Brown, we should give him a lot of credit too. 1999 or 98 is not anything to joke about. But what deGrasse did leaving stuff on the track, holding up, looking around, and running that time of Canadian record is one of the most impressive sprinting performances I've ever seen by Canadian. And yeah, you have to put him as the favorite. But, the finals are a funny thing, and there could be someone step up that was leaving stuff in the tank too.
Yeah, we're talking about the young American Knighton who did a 20.02 by easing up the last 20 meters. So that's a very interesting time for the 17-year-old. Let's not forget about Dwyer, the Jamaican, who's 32-year-old. So a lot of different type of athlete. Aaron Brown, of course, of Canada, has had a career that has been marred with ups and downs, Duane, because, of course, famously he had some great results, and he did great results at the Worlds and great results at the Canadian national level, being champion multiple times, 4 times champion of Canada in the 200 meters. Mostly years where deGrasse wasn't available to participate. That's also his shadow that he talks about, that he has been oftentimes in. And to him was a bit of the moment to step out of that shadow. He is the captain of the athletics team in Tokyo, and he is able to been sharing that experience with the younger generation, and he's going to help the future sprinters. And he's obviously going to be a very good competitor for deGrasse in this final. But the final tomorrow, 8:55 a.m. Once again, it is going to be an amazing 20 seconds of running. And for deGrasse, he led up in the last 15, 20 meters. He still has some in the tank. It's going to be him, Bednarik, Van Bule, maybe from Liberia, Brown, and Knighton are maybe your top 5. Let's not forget the Nigerian, but at least Andre deGrasse in this one will have a good lane. And I think that's the reason why he wanted to put a good time into the semifinal, to not get caught with lane number 9 again, because 3 times so far in these games he has ran from line number 9. It's not the best one, especially not at 200. You don't get the same explosiveness coming out of the bend as you do when the bend's a little shorter. You get that little kick that you need to push through, and deGrasse is known to having a good end of a 200. Brown is known for having a good bend. There are 2 different type of athletes, and Brown, Duane, in his 200-meter semifinal, really worked hard in the last 100-meter in that. When he was at full speed and was able to keep that full speed for longer, that is why deGrasse is one of the best in the world in sprinter, because he maintains his full speed longer than any other sprinters in the world. That is where his strength is.
Yeah, you have to beat deGrasse off the line. Like, you have to get enough of a lead that he won't be able to overcome it and get back to you. But for Brown, I think he has a chance to get on the podium. He would need to run another PB. I think all 3 medals are clearly going to be under 20. I have a hunch that on this fast track and with the form these guys seem to be in, this might be one of the fastest 200 meters ever run. And a lot of the races have been that, and that's good to see. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. The 200's a fun race. The 100's a lot, that gets all the attention, and rightfully so. It's exciting, but you see it play out a little more in the 200, and I just have always found it a little more interesting to watch than the 100, which is more about the moment than the actual strategy to it. Just go.
Yeah, and by the way, in case you're wondering, the Olympic record for the 200 meter on the men is 19.30, and then the world record made by Usain Bolt, by the way. Usain Bolt, the world record is 19.9, which was done at the 2009 World Championships, and that still holds up, the 200 meter 19.9. I would be surprised if we see a 19.9. Maybe we'll get close to a 19.3, but even then, it feels like those are really fast times. Maybe the gold medal will be at around 19.5 if I have to estimate, but it's more a guesstimate at this point.
Yeah, well, you never know. Like, the conditions could go sideways too, but yeah, it'll be fast. That's what I'll say. And it's deGrasse, I think, is the moderate favorite. And there's been a lot of talk in this country about the lack of medals on the men's side of the ledger, just the one at the moment. So it would be nice to add a couple more to that so that they can get a little bit of attention too.
Yeah, and deGrasse may be the favorite now heading into the final of the 200 men, which, by the way, will be at 8:55 a.m. tomorrow. And due to scheduling conflict, tomorrow we'll see what time we can get. Maybe we'll squeeze the show after that final. But, of course, as soccer statistician. It's a game day tomorrow. We'll see what we can do, but we'll for sure have a show, and we'll talk about it as soon as we can. Now, Duane, let's dive into our wood medal for today because it is related. Our wood medal goes to the trend of seeing sprinters get cocky, overconfident, stopping before the line, thinking they're good. But other sprinters thinking they got a shot and not stopping and piping them at the line by a shoulder, by a hair, it doesn't matter. In the famous word of Vin Diesel, I can beat you by a mile or by an inch. Doesn't matter. That's the case. Run to the line, they say.
Indeed, run to the line. The whole showboating is good until it's not type thing, right? Like, I think it's part of the sprint game, but it's almost bit a few people in the bum. And so if you're going to do it, you got to make sure that you're the set. And that's, you can't make rookie errors with it, especially if you've been to an Olympics before. These are very competitive heats. If you remember back in the old days, like 20 years ago or so, the heats used to be for the big guys. They could really shut it down at 60 meters and not really worry about it at all. They can't really do that now. I think that the coaching across the board has improved, so you're seeing faster times for those countries. They're still not going to get through, but they're, instead of running 10.9s, they're running 10.2s now, so you can't shut it down completely, and that's for the best of the sport. So yeah, no, there was a couple close calls today. They got through in the end, but yeah, it's the Olympics. Don't screw around. Just keep the run through the line. Yeah.
You talk about close calls. We have seen actual amazing favorites, or at least top 4 contenders. The Jamaican Jackson. Just sounds like a superhero name, Jamaican Jackson, but she's really good. But she, in the 200-meter woman, she stopped running at 15 meters to go, thinking she was good to go. She was third. She looked around her. No one's there. She got pipped to the line. The time wasn't good enough. She did not make it through. And we've seen it with other athletes, an American athlete in the men's 100 and others. So there's been a lot of favorites not making the final because they start running to the line. So that is an actual trend, and it's surprising. You would think that the rookie mistakes made like veterans like this would go away, but no, they stay, and it's a trend. And you're seeing young athletes that are hungry, and that is also another trend in the athletics world. I don't know if it's the 1 year difference of 2020 to 2021, and the fact that it's kind of like the beginning of a new cycle of athlete coming over, but already at the games because of that 1 year. But we're seeing a lot of young athletes from places we're not used to really performing well in the athletic world. They're finishing second, finishing third. We're talking about athletes sometimes from Sudan or from other places that you don't expect. I've been really interested to see that. But yeah, run to the line.
Well, yeah. Fast doesn't have an age, right? Like you're fast or you're not. And that's the bottom line. Like ultimately in the sprints, like I always get a kick when they're doing the post-race interviews with these guys and they're talking about their strategy and stuff like that. I mean, I'm sure that they do have some stuff that they go through and they're trying to work on, but ultimately their strategy is run fast. And if you have got the speed, you're going to win the race. That's kind of the bottom line.
Heck of a strategy. What is your strategy for the 100 meter? Well, when the gun go off, I start and I run to the line. That's what I do.
You almost paraphrased Ben Johnson there. Gun go off, really? Race be over. But anyway.
That's kind of like what it is. But also, of course, there's the acceleration and all. But run to the line. That's our win medal for day 11.
Fair enough.
Let's move to our Poutine Metal. A really happy moment for Canadian gymnastic. No, she did not get that elusive individual medal at the Olympic Games. Still hasn't been on the podium by herself. But Ellie Black, with an ankle injury, a pretty high sprain, like blue and black type of sprain, it took 4 hours of rehab every single day since that injury to get ready for the beam final. And she finished 4th, right behind Simone Biles. We'll talk about that later. But finished 4th in the beam final after suffering an ankle injury before the team finals last week. Ellie Black, she'll be 28 in Paris. Maybe it's not too far away. Maybe she can have another go at it. But congratulations, you are our Poutine Medal for day 11.
I believe she actually has said that she's looking to go to Paris. I'm not 100% sure on that, but no, for sure. She is the best female gymnast that's ever come out of this country. That is a low bar in terms of success at the international level. There has not been a lot. In fact, it would have been the first medal on the female side that they had gotten in, I believe, either ever or in, might as well be ever time frames. It was close. I mean, I made jokes on Twitter this morning how I was clearly a balance beam expert, but I didn't really see the Chinese women's routines as being universally better than the other two women. But then again, I'm not actually a balance beam expert, so maybe they were.
Maybe we're a little bit biased too. We're like, well, we kind of want Simone and Ellie to be on 1-2 and not the two Chinese, but yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, well, the bias could be another way too. We could be that we're biased towards muscular performances as opposed to more finesse performances, which is kind of where the Chinese athletes go with it. They're more technical and less sort of spectacular, and that could be it. They were explaining in the broadcast that the Chinese women were very efficient in what they did, and the degree of difficulty was increased by little stuff that they were doing, which is a multiplier. So that helps with the points. Like, it's all about math, right? Anyway, to get back to Ellie, she came into this games injured, and there was a lot of hope that they might be able to qualify for the team final. That was a goal. They did not, and then she had to pull out of the all around, and there was an outside chance that she might have been competitive in there to compete for the bronze. But we didn't know about the injury when we were thinking that way, and once that came out, it was pretty clear that she wasn't going to be able to do that effectively. Like something like the vault was not going to work for her.
No, exactly, and the all around was a lot of time. But the fact that she finished fourth, Duane, with a degree of difficulty lower in her routine because of that injury. She had to change her dismount, which goes for a big part of your score. It is, like you say, one of those multiplier standard type of element in your routine. And for Ellie Black, she was not having that extra multiplier bonus points with a crazy complicated dismount. So that also is the result of that injury. The fact that she's fourth is quite surprising.
Yeah, and look, everyone always says, oh, it's the worst place to finish, and I get that, and I'm sure it is frustrating on some level, but I think I've said this once already in this string of podcasts. Fourth at the Olympics is fine, and it's more than fine. You're the fourth best in the world at that particular day, and it's something to be proud of, and it's something to work off of, and she's medaled at a world championship. She has accomplished more than any other Canadian female gymnast has done. So if this is the end for her, then she can hold her head high, and I'm sure that she'll have an influence in the sport. I'm sure that we'll see her on the CBC is what we'll see her on, because she's a very articulate young woman too, and that could lead to her being a voice for the sport for a while. But maybe she's got a little more time in her too. So we'll see. And that said, it's the end of the gymnastics program, so we won't see her more this Olympics, but hopefully she can learn to accept and enjoy the fourth place finish, all things considered.
Yeah, like we love Karl Schufelt, but maybe Karl Schufelt and Ellie Black can have a very nice combination there. Maybe that could be fun to listen to at the CBC. On that note, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast at Five Rings Podcast, everywhere you get your podcast. Duane and I will have a short break. When we come back, we'll give our bronze, our silver, and our wood medal for day number 11 of the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. Back on the Five Rings Podcast, Kevin Laramee with Duane Rollins as always, talking about Tokyo 2020. Thanks for subscribing to our podcast. everywhere you get your podcasts, YouTube page to get the video review of all the shows we do at youtube.com/sports podcasting network. And you can follow Duane on social media at 24th Minute. That's Twitter and Instagram. Let's not forget, do it for the gram at 24th Minute. And myself at Kev Laramee. Let's go, Duane. Let's take a bronze dip. Let's continue our conversation about gymnastics. But let's move a little bit down south of us. Let's talk about Simone Biles. After withdrawing from her previous 5 competitions due to an injury, Simone Biles wins a bronze medal, finishes 3rd behind the 2 Chinese. A wholesome moment, a smile, and even behind the mask, we can see the eyes. The eyes were smiling. Congratulations, bronze medal, Simone Biles. The moment of the Olympic Games will be remembered for Simone Biles as more than just a bronze medal. It's her entire journey towards that bronze medal that needs to be celebrated and understood.
Exactly. And we've talked a lot about that, and it sort of tried to underline how none of us can judge an athlete's decision when it comes to their safety and their well-being, which is what she was doing. And if you want to make this about you, then you really need to give yourself some perspective. So on that note and on that perspective, for her to come back in, she was expected to be the star of the games. The way the American coverage works, she would have been front and center for the entire Olympics, like cover of Sports Illustrated type stuff, but it's not going to be that. Well, it might be that for a different reason, not the athletic reasons this time. But that said, she still is an athlete. She showed why she was expected to do so well with that routine. It was very powerful, as I said. I felt it was the best routine. Again, I'm not a balance beam expert, but it looked the best to me. And I'm sure that bronze medal for her will have a golden tinge to it. And, that's the bottom line with that. And it also, I think, will be maybe her last time on a floor. She has said she's retiring after these Olympics, so it might be her last time that you see her. And if that's how she goes out, then it's a good way to go out. So considering especially that, she's getting criticism from a lot of places over the last little while, and we've already articulated that. So it's a nice way to go out, and it's what you want to see. So it's a good of us to honor her as well. I'm sure it's the biggest honor she got today was to be a 5-ring medalist.
Yeah, it's our bronze. Never mind the Tokyo 2020 bronze, but the bronze of the 5X podcast, that virtual fake bronze is incredible. But it is what it is. Unfortunate, just breaking news, the Canadian duo Pavan and Humanda Paredes and Barzil Wilkerson both eliminated in the quarterfinals, Duane. So that's unfortunate in beach volleyball. So that's a bad news that we got just before we move on.
Yeah, I had it on the background. I saw it play out. Look, they played very well throughout this entire tournament. The Australians today were amazing. I didn't have commentary on, obviously, because I was doing this, but they were just doing everything right out there. Like a full measure to that.
Yeah, the Bavandi, they were 4-0 heading into this match in the quarterfinals, and yeah, it's one of those win or go home games. But bronze medal, Simone Biles, and let's continue our journey towards our gold medal for today. Now we're going to talk about our silver medal for today, Duane, because silver medal is not bad. Silver is not too shabby, but especially when you do a double-double. No, not a coffee with 2 sugars and 2 cream, but we're talking about twice a gold double. 100 and 200 in Rio for Elaine Thompson era, and gold in the 200 and 100 in Tokyo. Great performance by Elaine Thompson era. Fraser Price finished just off the podium. The generation, the youngs are coming. But Elaine, even with dealing with an injury over the last few years, Achilles injury, still top of her game, top of her class, top of the world.
Yeah, and she might not have the world records to match, but we have gone over that a few times. So, what we've seen at the last couple of days is some of the fastest running we've ever seen by a female athlete. So it was great to see, and that she was dominant in the 200 final. Just this pulled away from the entire field, which was a very strong field. So yeah, it was a great run, and that program down there, they just churn it out, right? Like one after another. It's hard to ever see them losing.
They have 3 or 4 every single Olympic that can maybe compete for a medal. Of course, the 3 that got on the podium for the 100, so Thompson, Hera, Fraser Price, and Jackson, who didn't qualify for the semi in this one. But yeah, you're right. Just one after the other. On the man and the woman. If it's not one, it's the other. If it's the other, if it's not Bogue, it's Blake. If it wasn't Blake, it was Paul before that, and before that, it was somebody else, and there'll be somebody else next time. It's a classic program.
For a small country too. Like, I mean, sure. Obviously, there's a lot of Jamaicans that have moved all over the world, so and they can draw from that a little bit. But it's quite remarkable what they do in the track and field side. I mean, there's not a lot else going on for them into the Olympics games, but that they're a Caribbean nation to win anything like that, let alone they usually finish in the top 10 of the medal standings because they get so many golds on the track. So
that's true. And there's a few Caribbean countries that are doing really well, right, on the track. So, of course, the Bajan athletes from Barbados are doing better than some other similar countries. West Indies countries are doing good. Jamaica and also Bahamas are doing really well in the athletics category.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about track is it's a pure sport in the sense that money matters. Let's not kid ourselves. And science matters, which is why you see the rich countries and countries that have liberal policies in terms of what they consider viable science, we'll say, tend to do okay too. So all that matters, but it's also a sport that, again, what's your strategy? It's to run fast, and if you're able to run fast and you have a passion for it, like they do in Jamaica, then yeah, you're going to produce people. Or the Kenyans on the long distance side is the other side of this same coin, right? And if it's that passion and it's a love in that country, then seeing a result like that will be celebrated for years there. And this track meet's been great. I thought the swim meet was really good, but the track meet is blowing it out of the water. Use the pun.
Pun intended.
Yeah, no, it's been very fast. I think the track's very fast. Well, in the sprints anyway. That said, the 5,000 semis today were
pretty fast too.
Yeah, they were fast, but they were also like
chippy. They were cagey. Like we could talk about it for a sececond. Mohammed Hamid from Canada was being boxed in by the Kenyans and had to extend his arms to make sure to protect his stride, like he was talking about after the game, after the race. He needed to protect his pace, and he got there and he qualified for the rest. But yeah, cagey long distance. We've seen a lot of falls and trampling, and yeah, that's been. Like you said, a chippy long distance events a few times.
Yeah, speaking of Mo, we'll probably have a chance to talk about him on some level after the 5,000 meter final, because I suspect even if he doesn't get a medal, he'd probably do well enough that I might want to make him the Poutine Metal at that point. But he's a fun guy. He's cocky. He's cocky like he is. But that's a good thing, because you've got to compete with those guys. Like, we think of the sprinters as the chest out lions out there, but those guys running those distances also have a certain way about them, because it's a very, as you said, physical and competitive. And the Kenyans were probably boxing him in because they wanted to get rid of him, to be honest, right? Like, if we can push him back and get him off his stride, then we've got one of our competitors out of the final.
Also, the talking. There's a lot of talking, apparently, because when you're packed like this, camera's not necessarily focused on your lips, and you can start like mouthing a little bit and be like, that's what he said. He's like, there's some talking in there. Like, that's interesting.
I cannot comprehend how someone talks when they're running a 13-minute 5K. Kevin, I don't know if you run.
No. So even walking and talking is sometimes not that easy.
Yeah, I can run a 5K if I'm not fast, but if I really push it, I might get around 28. Like a weekend warrior, my 20s is what they're trying to get under. 13, it's dumb. I don't know how anyone does it. It is obscene what they do. When you have any concept of how fast those guys are running that far, like I could not keep up with them for 100 meters, let alone 5K. It's incredible what they do anyway.
Yeah, it's also easier when it's on a track situation, right? Because you don't have to worry about where you're going, and that takes a lot out of it. But no, you're absolutely right. It's crazy times. If 5K would take me like in the 60s of minutes, like an hour and a half, if I run 5K.
I could get you around 30 in about 6 weeks, but couch to 5K. We'll get you in a program, Kevin. We'll run a 5K.
Okay, I'll do it if we have the Patreon. So patreon.com/sportspodcast network. I need motivation that way. For me to run, yeah, I'll do it on the bike, no problem.
Yeah. We don't have time today, but remind me if we have some lulls in the future. I'll tell the story of how I have no ill will with the woman, but my ex-wife, before the wedding, she was a half marathoner, and she decided that I needed to run a 5K, so I was in shape for the wedding. And she was going to race me, and she was all cocky the night before and had some wine because she was a runner and I was not. Yeah, I beat her. Anyway, that's my story. Basically, I just told it. So there you go.
That's an interesting aspect. All right, let's talk about our gold medal for day number 11. It was quite a performance, a world record performance, and that's why it is on top of our gold medal standings. We're talking about Karsten Warholm, Duane. Karsten Warholm, gold medal, 400-meter hurdles, another track record here. New world record, 45 seconds, 94. That's not a lot for hurdles because, well, 4 times 10, which is what people run in 100 meters, is 40. So just add 6 seconds only for all the hurdles and the obstacles and the pain that comes with jumping and running a hurdles race.
I don't know what the Olympic standard is for the 400 flat, just a 400 meter, but I suspect that that's close to what the standard is to qualify for the 400 meter without jumping over things. So yeah, no, it was people that know the sport were ranting about how incredible that race was and calling it one of the best, runs in the history of track. Just technically, like his ability to hit his strides perfectly between the hurdles and to keep it to 8 strides between the hurdles was what his goal was. Is really ambitious. And
yeah. You know what surprised me? Sorry, the fact that they're able to jump with 2 lead legs now. Like it's not. They finally figured out that the hesitation or that little stutter step that I waste trying to get ready to jump the hurdles. And we've seen a ton of athletes now having 2 lead legs and having a stride that is almost perfect because you don't need that hesitation step, if you know what I mean. That stutter step to get ready for your lead leg. Your lead leg is always ready because you have 2. That's fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's evolved to that for sure. And like I said, ultimately it's hard for us as we're generalists, so we can't get into the weeds in the same way a track expert could, but the time speaks for itself. It's a world record and it's a dominant performance. And it also was gutsy too, because he was pushed at some point. There was the silver medalist pushed on him, and he just saw it and had like an extra energy source to surge back ahead. Like he was almost in cruise level. Like people thought he was slowing, but he wasn't. It was just, oh, okay, he's catching up. I got to add a gear. And to be able to do that at that point, it's nuts. And he could also see that once he got ahead, there's some argument that he still shut it down a little bit in the finals and probably could have taken a few more hundreds at least off of it. So
but there's bonuses attached to doing the world record at the World Championships too. So don't put the world record too far ahead that you can't get another one. That's the old Usain Bolt not beating the world record in Beijing, but in that World Championship the year after type of conversation.
Well, and the World Championships come pretty quick too. So, yeah, and the track athletes think of the World Championship in the same way as they think of the Olympics too. There's not a lot of difference in how they approach them. We know that from talking to track athletes. So,
World Championships are actually viewed as maybe more difficult to win on a regular basis than Olympics because you don't have the random athletes that are still there at the Olympics that wouldn't qualify for World Championships.
It's like, it's like soccer, right? Like we are soccer experts, and the women's soccer tournament, which we especially know is easier, much easier than an Olympics. It doesn't take anything away from the accomplishment of anyone, including, obviously our team that's in it, like I have an element in it, but
Duane, assistant coach of the Canadian women's national team.
And I don't think I would last very long in that job. The Olympics have that element to it. It's it's a different animal. But yeah, great run today, and that's the bottom line. And it's what does make the Olympics different, though, is it's a run that the world watches. With all due respect to the World Athletics Championship, which is something that I do watch, it's not anywhere close to the same level of viewership, right? I mean,
No.
you're talking about hundreds of thousands rather than millions.
Well, rather than billions. Like the 100-meter final, I think you can use the B word there, which is billion. But you're right, and that's the big difference. But we're going to get to the World Championship, so we'll talk about them right here.
100%. Yeah, no. Yeah, and they're next year. So it's what a run. Like, that's all you can say. Like, there's not much more you can say about it. The dominant performance, and a guy from Norway too. Like, I mean, that's not exactly where you think of
track hotbed, obviously, right? Track and field, the hotbed in the history of the sport.
Yeah, no, well, not at all, especially in the sprints. But it's, it only takes one, and then suddenly you have
a culture that grows out of it. You're absolutely right. Look at us in Canada, 96. Now we got another guy going for gold, by the way. Let's just remember before we say goodbye for today, if you're Canadian listening to our show, 8:55 a.m. Eastern Time, deGrasse, Brown, 200-meter men's final. But let's take a look at the medal standings before we say goodbye. After day 11, China top of the medal board. Once again, 32 gold. United States 24, Japan 19, Australia 14. Rock, do not call me the Rock. Dwayne Johnson is 5th with 13 golds. Great Britain is 6th with 13, but less total medals, with 43. And we have Canada now in 16th position. It says 14 here. It's a typo. It's in 16th position with 3 gold, 4 silver, and 7 bronze for the Canadian contingent. And on that note, yeah, that's day 11.
It is day 11, and day 12 is less than 12 hours away. So we'll talk soon. Still lots of this thing to go. That's different.
Yep, you're right. Still a lot of this thing to do. And until then, you can follow Duane on social media at 24th Minute, myself at Kev Laramee, and this show at 5 Rings Podcast. We'll be back with a brand new edition tomorrow. But as always, until then, make sure you follow our podcast on all your favorite podcast applications so you get the new episodes as soon as they become available. And you can subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/sports podcasting network. But as always, until next time, have a great Olympiad.